What's up, my foodie family? I hope you're all eating well. Today, we're here to talk leftovers. All right, so what do you do when you're done eating that salmon with rice and broccoli that you have already reheated once or twice and you don't want to reheat it anymore? And, what do you do with those vegetables that have been sitting in the refrigerator and you don't have a use for them? You've been thinking about what to do with them. Like, what do you do with those things? So, and what I would usually do whenever I have a dish that has been in the refrigerator for a couple days, I've reheated it a couple times, and I don't want to reheat it anymore. At that point, what I would do is I would take the vegetables from that dish. I would cut up some onions, cut up some celery, cut up some garlic, saute the onions, saute the garlic, then add the celery to it, then add a little bit of maybe some white wine or some vegetable stock or some chicken stock or whatever type of stock that you like to use. Put it all in there in the pot. Saute the onions, saute the garlic with the onions, and then saute the celery, and then maybe deglaze with wine. But you don't have to. You can just use some type of stock if you want. Put your stock in there, deglaze with the stock. Then you can put some herbs in there too if you want to, and then you can take those vegetables, or you can take that you can take those whatever the remaining vegetables, the broccoli from that salmon, the broccoli and the rice. Take the broccoli and put it in there with the vegetables, the onions, the rice, the onions, the stock, the celery, the garlic. Throw it all in that same pot. If you have a blender, a stick blender, or a regular blender, after all of that has been simmered, you can put it inside of the blender and blend it, or use a stick blender and blend it. And then you can take the salmon afterwards and add the salmon in with it, and then break the salmon into pieces, and then you can make a salmon soup. Put the rice in there, the salmon in there. You can make a soup. You can add a little cornstarch slurry, which is equal parts water and cornstarch. So 2 tablespoons of water, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Mix them together, and then whenever your soup is simmering, the onions, the garlic, the celery, the vegetable stock, and then you got your broken up salmon in there as well, and then your rice also. And then once that's simmering, you can take those equal parts of the cornstarch and the water, and then you can add it in, whisk it into the soup, whether the soup is pureed or it's not. Whether you pureed all the vegetables or you didn't, you left it real chunky. You can add that cornstarch slurry in there and let it simmer a little longer. It'll thicken. Or if you want to take that same mixture, the onions, the garlic, the celery, and then once it's sauteed, you add a little flour. If you're okay with adding flour in there at this point, you can add flour in there with it, and then that flour will create a roux. And then when you add the vegetable stock in there, it'll thicken with the vegetable stock. So at that point, again, you can blend it with the hand blender, the stick blender, or put it in a mixer and blend it in the mixer, or you can leave it chunky and then add the rice, the salmon, and the herbs in there with it, and you can have your soup with thickened with the flour, or you can have it thickened with the cornstarch, or you can let it reduce and thicken that way, and just like let it simmer and thicken and that reducing aspect of the cooking method. But that's one aspect. So you can take you can take those vegetables, the salmon, the rice, the broccoli. You can mix it with some sauteed vegetables and create a soup with it, or you can take that salmon, rice, broccoli, and you can make a wrap with it. Make a salmon, rice, broccoli wrap, okay? Or you can make a sandwich with it, okay? Or you can take that mixture, omit the rice, and then just add pasta and add the salmon and broccoli, and then you can make a salmon and broccoli pasta. And then later on, you can use the rice with something else. You can use the rice in a wrap later, or you can also make a casserole, a salmon and broccoli casserole out of that dish also. So you can chop up the salmon, chop up the broccoli. You can put that on a pizza. You can make a salmon and broccoli pizza. Okay, so the same thing. Even if you have leftover vegetables, let's say you have some onions that have been hanging around for a while, potatoes that have been hanging around for a while. You can make a soup out of those onions and potatoes. The old celery. You can take the old vegetables that are borderline, the onions, celery, or maybe carrots. You can roast those off, and then you can make them into a dressing. You can turn them into a dressing. Okay. You can put them on a salad. Okay. You can put them into a wrap. All right. Make them into a casserole. Okay. You can throw them on a pizza. All of those same things. Let's say you have these onions and these carrots sitting around. Let's say you don't want to make a pizza, you don't want to make a wrap, you don't want to make a pasta, you don't want to make a casserole. You can also simmer them in whatever type of water you want, filtered water, regular water, tap water, do whatever you want. But you can make them into a stock. Now you can have a vegetable stock, so you can use this vegetable stock. If you're making rice later on, you can use that vegetable stock to make the rice with. So now you have a flavor for rice. If you're making pasta, you can use that vegetable stock to boil the pasta in. So now you have a flavorful broth to cook your pasta in as well. So and that also that broth that you use, the vegetable stock, you can take that and you can use that as a base for your soup. So now you took those vegetables that you weren't going to use, you simmered them in or boiled them in whatever type of water you want to. Now you got a vegetable stock. Now you can take that vegetable stock and then you can take later on other vegetables and mix that in with the vegetable stock and make a vegetable soup. And then you can also can your vegetable stock. So you take your vegetable stock and you get your jars. You make sure they're hot. You got your boiling water. All of those things. You keep your vegetable stock hot. Mix them all together. You put the warm vegetable stock inside the warm jars, and then you put them inside the pot, and then you simmer them and you can them. And then now, once that's canned, you can put you put that vegetable stock on the shelf, and you can set it on the shelf for up to a year. The same with the soup. You don't have to eat the soups right away. You can take the soups, keep them warm, okay? And then you take the mason jars, keep them warm as well. You put the warm soup inside the warm mason jar. Then you put that inside the canning pot, and then you can that. You boil it at let it boil for about 20 minutes or so, and then the jars are sealed, and then you can put those soups on the shelf, and they will last for up to a year. So now you're making pizzas, now you're making salads, now you're making vegetable stocks, and you're sealing those vegetable stocks in the mason jars, and you're putting them on the shelf. So now they're lasting for a year. So let's say you got a mini garden. Let's say you got vegetables coming out of that garden. Let's say your garden is producing a lot, and you don't know what to do with it. Your neighbor, you gave something to your neighbors that don't want no more. You cooked with them. You don't know what else to do. You can make brines, vinegar brines, and then put those vegetables in the vinegar brines. Let them sit, let them ferment, and then can that. Then let that sit. All right, that's one way. All right, you can make soups out of those vegetables. Okay, and then you can those soups and put those on the shelf. That's another way. All right, we talked about the pizzas. You can make the pizzas with them as well. Put those on the shelf. That's another way. Okay, the pastas, the casseroles. So there's always things that you can do with these vegetables or these meats or these things, these foods that you're not going to use immediately. You can, freeze them. You can them. You can use them in stocks. You can use them in soups. You can use them in pastas. So that way you're getting the maximum yield on them. You're doing different things with them, so you're keeping it lively. You're not only eating them one type of way. So, it keeps your palate invigorated and wanting more. So those are just some different things that you can do with your leftovers. Okay. Soups, pizzas, pastas, okay, casseroles, all right, salads, okay, freezing them, canning them, okay, like all of these different ways are ways that you can utilize your garden. You can utilize your leftovers and keep it invigorating, keep it interesting, keep it flavorful. So again, thank you for tuning in on this episode of how you can utilize your leftovers resourcefully, okay, and keep it lively. And as always, I thank you for tuning in, and love, peace, and fish grease. Tune in next time. Thank you.